So, a massive announcement just dropped slam. Makhachev has officially vacated his UFC lightweight title. Yeah, that's it. The longest reigning active champion in the promotion is walking away from the division he ruled for years. And this isn't a temporary thing. This isn't just to take a one-off fight at welterweight and come back. No, Islam Makhachev is done at lightweight and he's moving up for good. And honestly, I think this marks the end of the UFC's obsession with the champ era. Finally, they're putting their foot down. And I love it. Because double champ fights should be rare. They should only happen when we've got two fighters who are dominating their divisions on GOAT-level runs. Think Anderson Silva versus GSP, back when that fight would have meant something historic. That's what a double champ fight should be. Not this trend of winning a couple title fights and immediately chasing the next belt. BJ Penn versus GSP was one of the few legitimate champ moments that made sense. It was special. It meant something. But nowadays, it feels like every champion defends their belt once or twice and thinks they've earned a legacy-defining super fight. That's just not how it should work. And this Islam situation proves it. If Islam Makhachev, the longest reigning current champion, with the most title defenses, is being forced to vacate his belt to move up, then nobody else should be allowed to skip the line. It's either defend or move up and leave your belt behind. Interestingly, not long ago, Islam said he wouldn't vacate. But here we are. Just days later, the title's gone. So you already know the UFC stepped in and said, look, if you want to move up, that lightweight belt's staying here. And Islam must have realized there's just not a lot left for him at 155. He already beat Volk, already cleaned out the division's most dangerous guys. The most exciting fights now are at welterweight. So he pulled the trigger, and he's staying at 170, and that's big. Because for a while, it felt like this was going to be a temporary move. 1 or 2 fights, then he'd return to lightweight. But no slam is now a full-time welterweight. The matchup with Jack Della Maddalena, it's official, and it's incredible. We're going to break that fight down in a separate video, but I'll just say this: Jack has a real shot. And if Jack wins, that's it. Islam is beltless. Isn't just some legacy move anymore. It's a gamble. From now on, champions will have to decide, stay and defend, build a legacy like GSP, Anderson, and DJ, or vacate and roll the dice. That's the game now. No more champ safety nets. And honestly, that's how it should be. And look who else just made the same move: Ilia Topuria. He vacated the featherweight title and is moving up to lightweight. And guess what? He's also fighting for a belt, right? Auelia versus Charles. Oliveira is now the main event for UFC 317. We're getting 2 division moves. TWO, vacant belts, and no double champs. That's a very clear message from the UFC. No more belt hoarding. And the wildest part, Ilya and Islam were the 2 guys that fans wanted to see fight each other. That dream fight looks like it'll never happen. They've both moved up and probably for good. Sure, there's a world where either guy could go back down. But they'd be returning as challengers, not champions. And let's be honest, neither Islam nor Ilya seems like they're planning to make that cut again now. Let's talk about size. Islam is about 5 feet 10, similar to Jack Della Maddalena, and probably walks around at 180 anyway. So I actually think Islam will transition to welterweight a lot better than Ilya will to lightweight. Ilya's short around 5'7". He'll be one of the smallest fighters in the division. Guys like Rafael Fiziev are already considered small for lightweight, and he's taller than Ilya. So that's something to keep an eye on. Still, Ilya versus Charles Oliveira is such a sick fight. It'll show us how legit Ilya really is at 155. Because, let's not forget, the only time we saw Ilya fight at lightweight in the UFC was against Jai Herbert, and he almost got knocked out. He's grown a lot since then, sure. But that's still the only data point we've got. Meanwhile, Islam hasn't fought at welterweight in the UFC yet, but stylistically, he might do even better there. So what does this mean for UFC 317? It's International Fight Week, and the card is solid. Not stacked like we hoped, but solid. Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira is your main event. Alexandra Pantoja versus Kai Kara-France for the flyweight title in the co-main. Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov in a guaranteed banger. Manel Kape versus Brandon Royval-Fire. Probably the third best fight on the card. Banal Dariush versus Renato Moicano. Rippling fans will love this one. Gregory Rodriguez versus Roman Dolidge is there. Vivian Arroyo versus Tracy Cortez. Justin Tafa. V's Don'Tale Mays. Decent fights, but not what you'd expect for International Fight Week. Let's be honest, here this card is like a 7/10. The main event carries it. If Ilya versus Charles wasn't headlining, this would be closer to a 5 or 6. After 2-week pay-per-views back-to-back, we expected the UFC to load up this one, and they didn't. It's good, but not elite. Like, why isn't Justin Gaethje versus Arman Tsarukyan on this card? Where's that fight? Meanwhile, we did get a massive announcement for UFC 319. Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev is official for August 16th in Chicago. One of the biggest fights of the year. Honestly, that fight might even be bigger than Islam versus Jack or Ilya versus Charles. It just feels like a proper mega-fight. Fans have been begging for it. We've talked about it for months. Now, it's happening. But the big question remains, where is Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall? We're getting announcements for main events all the way to August. UFC 319 is locked in, and yet, still nothing on Jones versus Aspinall. Could they be waiting for Madison Square Garden in November? Maybe. But Tom just came out and said he's done waiting. He just wants to fight. And who can blame him? Cones is doing what Conor McGregor is doing to Michael Chandler, holding up the division, picking his spots, and getting away with it. Ilya and Islam vacated their belts to keep fighting. Jones, he's keeping his belt and doing nothing. Dana White keeps saying, we'll announce that fight soon. But why not just announce it now if it's done? Something's off. If they haven't announced it yet, chances are it's not finalized. They're still trying to get Jones on board. And let's be real, it's probably about money. Fighter pay. The same story we've seen before. But the UFC is worth billions. If Francis Ngannou can make $20 million boxing, if Deontay Wilder can make $30 million, then what's $30 million to get Jon Jones in the cage for the biggest heavyweight title fight of all time? Pay the man. Give the fans the fight. Enough delays. So, to wrap it up, Islam vacates. Ilya vacates. The UFC is done with the champ trend for now. UFC 317 is a good card, but not the stacked blockbuster we hoped for. Dricus versus Khamzat is official absolute banger. Jon Jones still hasn't signed. The fight fans want most. It's a wild time in the UFC right now. And we're only halfway through the year. So what do you guys think? Was Islam right to vacate? Is Ilya biting off more than he can chew? And what's your rating for the UFC 317 card?